You're just a nobody. Emma, my son's fiancée, sneered the words at me from across the polished expanse of the dinner table, her laugh a sharp, serrated knife. The room froze. Her mother, Sophia, a woman whose approval Emma had always desperately sought, smirked in condescending agreement. I sat there, my hand gripping my fork, a white-hot rage simmering just beneath my calm, impassive exterior. They thought they knew me. Old, irrelevant John Kelly. A relic of a bygone era. They were wrong. Soon, they would find out just how wrong they were. And when her mother, in her inevitable panic, finally Googled my name, their carefully constructed world of inherited wealth and hollow arrogance would crumble into dust. The words, though softly spoken, hit me with the force of a physical blow. You're just a nobody. Emma's voice, a silken, venomous thread, sliced through the polite chatter of the dinner table. Her laugh, sharp and cruel, followed like a second, more vicious strike. The room fell instantly, unervingly silent. My fork hovered over my plate, a small dollop of mashed potatoes clinging to its tines. Across the polished oak table, Emma leaned back in her chair, a vision of youthful arrogance. Her perfectly manicured nails, the color of dried blood, glinted under the warm, golden glow of the chandelier. Her mother, Sophia, a woman who wore her wealth like a suit of armor, smirked, her lips curling with a satisfaction that made my stomach turn. My son, Michael, the reason I was even present at this excruciating ordeal, stared intently at his plate, his broad shoulders hunched, his silence a deafening roar of complicity. I sat there, John Kelly, 62 years old, feeling the crushing weight of their collective gaze. A slow, simmering rage began to burn in my chest, but my expression remained a placid, unreadable mask. My knuckles whitened around the heavy silver fork, but I didn't flinch. Not yet. The dining room of Sophia's opulent mansion, with its crystal glasses and flickering candles, had been suffocatingly warm just moments ago. Now, it felt like a cold, sterile stage, and I was the fool in the spotlight. Emma tilted her head, her blonde, professionally styled curls catching the light. "What's it like, John?" she asked, her tone dripping with a cloying, false pity that was more insulting than outright mockery. "Sitting in your little house, reliving your glory days? I mean, Michael told me you used to wear those old tweed suits to work. What were you, a clerk or something?" Sophia chuckled, a low, throaty sound, as she tapped her wine glass with a lacquered nail. "Oh, Emma, be kind," she purred, her words a masterclass in passive aggression. "Not everyone can keep up with the times. Some people, they just fade." Her cold, appraising eyes flickered to me, dismissing me as if I were a piece of antique furniture she had decided to discard. Michael shifted uncomfortably in his seat, the scrape of his fork against the plate a harsh, grating sound. He didn't look up. My chest tightened. I wanted to reach across the table, grab him by the shoulder, and shake him until he saw the man he was allowing them to humiliate. But his silence, his quiet, spineless acquiescence, cut deeper than their venomous words. My own son was letting this happen. I set my fork down with a deliberate, soft clink that was nonetheless deafening in the stillness. Every eye was on me. Emma's, triumphant. Sophia's, smugly amused. Michael's, still averted. The candles cast long, dancing shadows across the white tablecloth, like the ghosts of the life I had so carefully built, a life they knew nothing about. They thought they knew me. Old, irrelevant John Kelly, a quiet widower, a relic to be pitted and then discarded. They were so very, very wrong. "Emma," I said, my voice low but carrying a new, unfamiliar weight that made her sit up a little straighter. "You think you know who I am?" I leaned forward just enough to catch her gaze. Her confident smile faltered for a fraction of a second. "But you don't." The room seemed to hold its collective breath. Sophia raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow, but I didn't look at her. My eyes stayed on Emma, on the flicker of uncertainty that had appeared in her bright green eyes. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping loudly against the hardwood floor. "Excuse me," I said, rising to my feet. My hands were perfectly steady, but my heart was pounding like a war drum against my ribs. I walked out of the dining room, their whispers and a fresh peal of Emma's laughter trailing behind me like smoke. The hallway was dim, the air cooler. My steps slowed as I passed a large, gilt-framed family portrait hanging on the wall. A younger me, a radiant Elizabeth, and a small, smiling Michael, a happy family in a world that no longer existed. Elizabeth's eyes, so full of warmth and intelligence, seemed to follow me. Her presence was a ghost in the frame, a silent witness to this fresh indignity. I stopped, my fingers brushing against the cool glass. Emma's laugh echoed in my mind, sharp and mocking. They would find out soon enough. When Sophia, in her arrogance and her greed, finally decided to Google my name, their world would come crashing down. But first, I needed to remind myself of the man I had been, the man I had buried under years of quiet sacrifice. I turned and headed toward my study, the old, familiar door creaking as I pushed it open. The night was just beginning. The study door clicked shut behind me, muffling the distant, alien clink of dishes from the dining room. I stood in the quiet darkness, the air heavy with the familiar, comforting scent of old books and polished wood. My desk, a sturdy oak relic from a life that now felt like it belonged to someone else, loomed in the corner. On it sat the small, silver-framed photo of my family, Elizabeth's smile frozen in time, Michael's small hand clutched tightly in mine. I crossed the room, my shoes soft on the worn Persian rug, and picked up the frame. My thumb traced the edge, the glass cool and smooth under my touch. The memories, unbidden, hit me like a powerful, cresting wave. It was 1997. I was 34 years old, striding through the gleaming glass doors of a prestigious investment bank in downtown Chicago. The trading floor buzzed with a raw, electric energy, phones ringing, papers shuffling, the palpable hum of ambition. My desk was buried under a mountain of financial reports, a half-empty coffee mug teetering precariously on the edge. My boss, Harold Vance, a titan of the industry, leaned against my doorframe, his tie already loosened. "Kelly," he'd said, tossing a thick folder onto my desk. "You're on the fast track for VP. Big accounts, corner office, the whole damn show. You want it?" I had wanted it. God, I had wanted it more than anything. But Elizabeth's cough had worsened that week. Her face, when I visited her in the hospital, was pale and drawn against the stark white of the pillows. I could see her in my mind's eye, her small hand squeezing mine, her voice a soft, breathless whisper. "We'll be okay, John. We just need time." I had looked at Harold, my throat tight. "I need to be home," I had said. He had blinked, then nodded, a flicker of disappointment in his eyes. I had left the folder, and the life it represented, unopened on my desk. The memory shifted, the scene changing. It was 2004 now. Our kitchen was small and cluttered, the old refrigerator humming a constant, companionable tune in the corner. Michael was 16, all lanky limbs and a quiet, simmering rebellion. I sat at the table, writing a check for his private school tuition, my fingers cramped from the overtime I was working at a smaller, less demanding firm, a job that paid half of what I had earned before. The pen scratched against the paper, each zero a promise for his future. Michael had breezed through the kitchen, grabbing an apple from the bowl. "Thanks, Dad," he had mumbled, his eyes on his phone, already halfway out the door. He hadn't seen the stack of unpaid bills beside me. He didn't know that I had turned down another, better job offer just to stay close to home, to be there for him after his mother was gone. Another flash. 2012, Michael's college graduation. The auditorium was packed with proud, beaming families. I sat alone in the back, my suit, purchased for Elizabeth's funeral, now a size too big. On stage, Michael gripped his diploma, a wide, triumphant grin on his face. "I want to thank my friends," he said into the microphone, his voice echoing through the vast hall. "You guys are the ones who got me here." The crowd clapped.
I waited, my chest tight, but my name was never mentioned. I clapped too, my hands feeling heavy and numb, my smile a carefully constructed mask. Back in the quiet of my study, I set the photo down, my breath uneven. I had given up everything, my career, my dreams, my pride, for him. And now, Emma's cruel words rang in my ears. "You're just a nobody." Michael's silence stung even worse. I had allowed myself to become invisible, a shadow in my own life, all for a son who was now ashamed of me.
I sank into my chair, the old leather creaking a familiar, comforting sound. My eyes fell on a desk drawer, left slightly ajar. The corner of my old, leather-bound address book was peeking out. I pulled it free. The cover was worn soft with use, the pages yellowed with age. It smelled of time, of deals closed and promises kept. This book held the names of people who had once called me a force of nature, a man who could move mountains in the financial world. I hadn't opened it in years. My fingers, hesitant at first, then with growing confidence, traced the names. Each one was a thread connecting me to a past I had deliberately, and painfully, buried. I wasn't that man anymore. Or was I? Emma and Sophia thought they could bury me with their words, but they didn't know the weight I had carried, the strength it had taken to let go of glory for the sake of love. I flipped a page, then another, my pulse quickening. And then I saw it. Frank Sullivan. A name that could change everything. I stopped, my thumb pressing down on the faded ink. A slow smile tugged at my lips, small but real. The rage from the dining room was still there, a hot coal in my gut, but now it had focus. I closed the book, the sound sharp in the quiet room. Standing, I slipped it into my pocket and headed for the door. The phone was in the living room, and I had a call to make. A very, very important call. The living room was dim, a single floor lamp casting a soft, forgiving glow across the old, comfortable couch. I stood by the coffee table, the address book a heavy, solid weight in my hand, its worn leather warm from my grip. The phone, a black cordless relic that hadn't rung in weeks, sat on the side table. My thumb hovered over the buttons, the numbers from Frank Sullivan's page burned into my memory. Emma's sneer echoed in my head. "You're just a nobody." My jaw tightened. I was not that man. Not anymore. I dialed. Each beep was unnaturally loud in the quiet room. My heart thudded, a frantic mixture of fear and fire. What if Frank didn't remember me? What if he did, but simply laughed? The line clicked. A gruff, familiar voice answered. "Sullivan." "Frank," I said, my own voice steadier than I felt. "It's John Kelly." There was a pause, a beat of silence that stretched for an eternity. Then, a low, rumbling chuckle. "John Kelly, as I live and breathe. Been a minute, hasn't it?" "Too long," I said, forcing a smile he couldn't see. "I need to talk to you. In person. Are you free tomorrow?" Another pause, longer this time. "What's this about, John?" His tone shifted, the casual warmth replaced by a sharp, professional curiosity. He sensed the weight behind my words. "Let's just say I'm calling in an old favor." I glanced at the address book, still open to his name. "Are you still a member at the club?" "Yeah." "Noon work for you?" His voice had an edge now. He knew this wasn't just a friendly catch-up. "Noon is perfect." I kept it short. "See you then." "Looking forward to it, Kelly." The line went dead. I set the phone down, my breath slow and deliberate. The room felt smaller, the air charged with a new, electric energy. I crossed to the window and looked out at the quiet, manicured street. My reflection stared back from the dark glass, my eyes sharp and focused. For the first time in years, I recognized the man looking back at me. A memory flickered. 1995, a sleek Chicago restaurant, all dark wood and clinking glasses.
I was 32, my suit crisp, my handshake firm. Across the table, a rival CEO leaned forward, his pen poised over a contract. "You drive a hard bargain, Kelly," he'd said, his smile a mixture of admiration and defeat. I had closed a deal that everyone said was impossible. That man, the confident, unstoppable dealmaker, felt close again, his pulse beating in my own veins. I turned from the window. Emma and Sophia thought they had broken me, but they had only awakened me. Michael's silence was a deep, painful wound, but I would show him the truth about the father he had so easily dismissed. I slipped the address book back into my pocket. Its weight was like a key to a door I had locked long ago. Tomorrow, Frank would help me open that door. I didn't know what he would tell me about Sophia's secrets or Emma's games, but it was a start. I grabbed my coat from the rack. The cool night air would clear my head. I stepped outside, locking the door behind me. The stars were bright and sharp against the black, silent sky, like they were watching, waiting. I climbed into my car, the engine humming to life. Frank was waiting. And I was ready.
The charity banquet hall's warm, golden glow spilled out onto the sidewalk as I approached. The red carpet, a cliché I had always disdained, led to a pair of massive glass doors that reflected the city's glittering skyline. Emma's sleek, white BMW pulled up just ahead, its engine purring before a valet took the keys. I adjusted my tie and slipped inside, keeping to the shadows near the grand entrance. The air was thick with the cloying scent of expensive perfume and the incessant clink of champagne flutes. The crowd was a shimmering sea of sequins and tailored suits. I stayed by a large marble column, my eyes scanning the room for Sophia. The trap was set. And I was here to watch it spring. The hall was a spectacle of obscene wealth. Crystal chandeliers, each the size of a small car, cast a dazzling, prismatic light on the walls. A string quartet played softly in a corner. Sophia stood on a raised platform, a vision in an emerald green gown that shimmered as she smiled at the podium. Her voice, amplified by the microphone, was polished and proud. "This cause, helping underprivileged children, means so much to me," she said, her hands gesturing grandly. "And that is why I am so thrilled to pledge $50,000 to this wonderful organization tonight." The crowd erupted in polite, enthusiastic applause. But I saw the auctioneer's assistant, a young woman with a tablet, frown as she tapped the screen. My pulse quickened. I leaned against the cool marble of the column, my fingers brushing against the old address book in my pocket. The assistant whispered something to the auctioneer, who then stepped forward, his own smile looking strained and tight. "Mrs. Wilson," he said, his voice booming through the hall. "There seems to be a slight issue with your payment." Sophia froze, her hand held mid-gesture. The room stilled, the string quartet's notes fading into an awkward silence. "An issue?" she repeated, her laugh a brittle, fragile sound. "That's impossible. Please, try it again." The auctioneer glanced at his assistant, who gave a slight, almost imperceptible shake of her head. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said, his voice laced with professional regret. "The transaction was declined." His words hung in the air, sharp and deadly as a blade. A wave of whispers rippled through the crowd, heads turning, eyes locking. Sophia's face flushed a deep, ugly red. Her eyes darted frantically across the sea of faces. "This is a mistake," she snapped, her voice cracking. "A technical error. I will handle it later." The auctioneer nodded, but the damage was done. The whispers grew louder. I caught fragments, overextended, living beyond her means, all for show. Sophia gripped the podium, her knuckles white, her gracious smile now a grotesque, slipping mask. In a corner of the room, Emma had pulled Michael aside, her face a mask of pure fury. "This is your fault," she hissed, her voice a low, venomous whisper. "Your pathetic family is dragging us all down." Michael's shoulders slumped, his hands raised in a gesture of helpless defense. "Emma, I didn't," he started, but she cut him off, her heels clicking angrily as she stormed toward her mother.
My chest tightened. Seeing Michael, my son, so thoroughly caught in her claws was painful. But the sight of Sophia's public fall from grace was undeniably, satisfyingly sweet. I had done this. I had plotted, I had waited, I had struck. The anonymous, beautifully forged invitation had worked perfectly, luring her into a spotlight she could no longer afford. I began to edge toward the side doors. Part of me wanted to stay, to savor every second of her humiliation, but I had seen enough. The whispers would spread like wildfire through their social circle. Her reputation would be left in tatters. This was just the first cut. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I slipped it out, the screen glowing with a text from Lisa, Elizabeth's oldest and dearest friend. "John, we need to talk. Can you meet tomorrow?" My thumb hovered over the reply. Lisa. Sharp, loyal, and always in the know. What did she have for me? I typed a quick yes. Noon, and pocketed the phone. I pushed the door open, the cool night air a welcome relief on my face. The city hummed beyond, its lights bright and unforgiving. I walked to my car, the text from Lisa looping in my mind. Sophia's stumble was just the beginning. And Lisa's message felt like the next, crucial piece falling perfectly into place.
The cafe's door chimed as I pushed it open, the rich, comforting scent of fresh coffee wrapping around me like a warm blanket. Lisa's message was still glowing on my phone's screen. I slipped it into my pocket, my eyes scanning the room. She was sitting near the window, her auburn hair catching the bright morning light. She waved, her smile soft but knowing, as if she had been waiting for this moment for as long as I had. I crossed the hardwood floor, the creak of my shoes blending with the low hum of conversation. The cafe was cozy, a place of wooden tables and mismatched mugs. I slid into the chair across from her. She had already ordered a coffee for me, and the warmth of the ceramic mug helped to ground my nerves. "You look good, John," she said, her voice gentle. "Thanks," I said. "It's been a while." Elizabeth's laugh flashed in my mind, a memory of her hand on Lisa's shoulder during a long-ago summer barbecue. I pushed it down, focusing on Lisa's steady gaze. She leaned forward. "I heard about the dinner," she said, her tone shifting, growing sharper. "Emma's little stunt. Calling you a nobody in your own home." Her lips pressed into a thin, angry line. I nodded, my jaw tight. She and Sophia think they have me all figured out. They're wrong. Lisa's smile returned, small but fierce. "Good. Because I have something you'll want to hear." She glanced around, her voice dropping. "Emma isn't just after Michael's money, John. She's tangled up with a man, some lowlife con artist who has been fleecing people for years. They're planning to use your son's trust fund to bankroll their next big scam." My breath caught in my throat. Emma's sneer at the dinner table flashed in my memory, her green eyes cold and calculating. I had known she was greedy, but this, a con artist pulling her strings. My pulse quickened. This was leverage. Real leverage. "How do you know this?" I asked, my voice low. "I have friends who talk," she said. "Elizabeth always said you were sharp, John. She said you could outsmart anyone. So, what's your move?" I leaned back, my mind racing. "We set a trap," I said, the words forming as I spoke. "Something she can't resist. A fake deal. Get her to show her hand." Lisa's eyes lit up. "I like it. I can pose as a go-between, feed her a story about a big investor. She's greedy. She'll bite." She reached into her purse and pulled out a faded photo, sliding it across the table. It was of her and Elizabeth, laughing on a beach. "For luck," she said softly. "And because she would want us to do this." I touched the photo, my throat tight. I slipped it into my pocket, next to the address book. "Who do we need to make this happen?" Lisa's smile turned sly. I have a name. An old contact of yours, actually. She handed me a napkin with a name scribbled on it. I glanced at it, a slow smile spreading across my face. It was the key I needed.
I sat in my study, the old business card from my past life held between my fingers. My phone buzzed on the desk. A message from Lisa. She's here. My pulse jumped. Emma was walking into the trap. I leaned back, picturing the scene. A sleek Chicago office, all glass and polished steel. Lisa, posing as an investor's assistant, offering Emma a deal too good to be true. A high-stakes venture that needed connected partners. Emma, blinded by her own greed, would take the bait. My phone buzzed again. She's talking. Recording now. I stood, pacing the study. I imagined Emma in that office, her smile all charm. I know just the person, she would say, tossing out the name of her con artist partner, Vincent Cole. She wouldn't suspect the hidden recorder. She wouldn't see the net closing around her. The thought sent a thrill through me, but a shadow of doubt followed. Michael. If I sent him this recording, would he believe it? Or would he cling to Emma, shutting me out for good? I had to trust that the son I raised was still in there somewhere. Another buzz. Got it. She named him. Sending you the file. My heart leaped. The file arrived, a tiny audio clip that held Emma's complete downfall. I didn't play it. Not yet. Instead, I pulled a blank envelope from the drawer and slipped a small USB drive inside. No note. No signature. Michael would get it anonymously, delivered to his office tomorrow.
I sealed the envelope, my hand steady. Emma's voice, her betrayal, would hit Michael like a freight train. But what then? I grabbed my coat, the envelope tucked safely inside. The post office was a short drive away. The hallway was quiet as I passed the family photo. Elizabeth's smile was a steadying force. The evening air was cool against my face as I stepped outside. Headlights flashed down the street, and I froze. Sophia's car, unmistakable with its gleaming chrome, was parked outside Michael's house, 2 blocks away. My grip tightened on the envelope. What was she doing there? Rallying her forces? The sight of her car was a spark, igniting a new wave of resolve. Emma was teetering. And Sophia was next. I climbed into my car, the envelope pressed against my chest, a promise I would deliver. Time was running out. The study was hushed, the glow of Elizabeth's old laptop casting long shadows on the walls. I sat at the desk, my fingers hovering over the keys. The laptop's hum filled the silence, a faint, comforting reminder of her presence. The family folder was open, but my mind was on Sophia. My phone buzzed. It was Lisa. Sophia is losing it, she said, her voice sharp with excitement. She's at home, digging through your past. Googling you like her life depends on it. A soft laugh. She's about to find out who you really are. I leaned back, a slow smile spreading across my face. I could almost see Sophia, her perfect nails clicking frantically on her keyboard, her eyes wide with a dawning horror. She had seen only a tired old man, a nobody. Now, the truth would hit her like a tidal wave. I pictured her screen, filled with articles about my early career, my name in bold next to multi-million-dollar contracts. A profile in a local business journal, praising my quiet, extensive charity work after I had stepped away from the spotlight. A photo of me at a gala, Elizabeth radiant on my arm. Sophia's world, built on status and lies, would crumble. Hours later, I stood in Michael's living room. The air was thick with a new, unfamiliar tension. Sophia and Emma stood before me, their faces strained. Michael lingered by the couch, his eyes flickering between us, a new weight in his gaze. Respect, perhaps. Sophia stepped forward, her voice trembling. John, we didn't know, she said, her usual poise gone. Your career, we misjudged you. I'm so sorry. Her eyes begged, but they were hollow, grasping for a control she had lost. Emma nodded, her voice small and forced. I was wrong, John. I didn't mean to hurt you. Can we start over? I looked at them, their words as thin and flimsy as paper. Emma's sneer from the dinner table, "You're just a nobody," rang in my ears. They weren't sorry for their cruelty. They were scared, cornered by their own failures, terrified of the man they had just discovered I was. You saw what you wanted to see, I said, my voice cold. You mocked me, you humiliated me in my own home. Apologies don't erase that. Sophia flinched. Emma's eyes darted to Michael, seeking rescue, but he remained silent, his jaw tight. I saw it then, a definitive shift in him. A dawning realization. He was seeing me, truly seeing me, for the first time in years.
John, please, Sophia tried again, her voice cracking. I shook my head and stepped toward the door. It's too late for that. My eyes met Michael's, and for a fleeting moment, we held each other's gaze. There was pain there, but also something new. Understanding. I turned and walked out. Lisa was waiting by my car, her arms crossed, her smile soft but knowing. You did it, John, she said, her voice warm. They're done. Now what? I paused, the photo of Elizabeth Lisa had given me still in my hand. Now, I said, we talk about what comes next. Lisa nodded, gesturing to her car. I followed, my steps lighter, the night opening before us like a new chapter. The cemetery gate creaked as I pushed it open, the evening air soft with the scent of blooming lilacs. Elizabeth's grave was tucked away beneath a large oak tree, its leaves whispering in the gentle breeze. I knelt, setting a bouquet of her favorite daisies against the headstone. The key to her old office, a new project Lisa and I were starting in her name, was a heavy, comforting weight in my pocket. I touched the cool granite. I did it, love, I said, my voice low, meant only for her. I showed them. Emma and Sophia, they're gone. And Michael. Michael is back. He sees me now. My throat tightened, but I smiled. You'd be proud, Elizabeth. I fought for us. The sunset painted the sky in hues of gold and pink, its soft light bathing the world in a gentle, forgiving glow. I sat back on the damp grass, the memories flooding in. The dinner. Emma's cruel laugh. Sophia's smug smirk. They had thought me nothing, a relic to be discarded. But I had unraveled their web of lies, piece by piece. The USB drive I'd sent to Michael, exposing Emma's con. The carefully placed leak that had bared Sophia's debts. Lisa's help, her sharp mind turning my quiet plans into a devastating reality. It had been a war, fought not with weapons, but with information and resolve. And I had won. Sophia was a social pariah, her name a whispered scandal in the circles she had once ruled. Emma, stripped of her charm and her engagement, had slunk away, her schemes in tatters. I didn't gloat, not even in the privacy of my own thoughts. The quiet, satisfying hum of justice was enough. Michael's apology echoed in my mind, his hand gripping mine, his eyes clear with a regret and a respect that had been absent for too long. That single moment, more than Sophia's fall or Emma's defeat, was my true victory. My son was mine again, not lost to their poison. And Lisa, her friendship, her fire, had given me something new, a purpose beyond the fight. The key in my pocket was proof of that, a charity in Elizabeth's name, a legacy we would build together. I stood, brushing the dirt from my knees. We're starting over, I told Elizabeth, my voice steady. Me, Michael, Lisa. We'll make you proud. The wind stirred, carrying the scent of daisies, and I felt her presence, not in the cold stone, but in the warm air, in the soft light, in the quiet strength I had carried through this ordeal. I walked to the gate,
the cemetery's iron doors looming ahead. They were no longer a barrier, but an opening, a threshold to something new. I paused, glancing back at her grave, the daisies glowing in the fading light. The fight was over. But life was not. I slipped the key from my pocket, its metal catching the last rays of the sunset. It felt right, a piece of Elizabeth I would carry forward into a future that was, for the first time in a long time, bright with possibility.